Thanks to advances in the past few decades, more and more families will consider if a tracheostomy and long-term mechanical ventilation makes sense for their child. This process can be difficult and frightening. Families are faced with making the right choice for their child while finding themselves in an unfamiliar world of medical jargon and complexity.
In this video, you will see some remarkable children and their families who've opened up their lives to make this video possible. Please remember as you are watching that the opinions expressed by the children and families are their own and not necessarily endorsed by your healthcare team.
Well, I received the tracheostomy and the ventilator, and I got it in July of, let's say, 2008. And the reason was I was having trouble breathing, and then the other reason was that I was getting a lot of pneumonia because mucus was getting stuck in my lungs and airway.
Because the meningitis went into his brainstem, it affected his body tone and he wasn't able to keep his trachea open. So the decision was made because then we knew that he would need long-term ventilation at that point.
I was really scared at first because, everybody makes mistakes and what if they did, but as they did it more and as the RTs and everybody, the nurses, they helped us through it at Bloorview and Sick Kids. I got more comfortable.
This decision was the best for us because Valentina is really, really very healthy and she is perfect with this. And we never had a fear with that machines because it's very safe for her.
There was no other, the other decision was basically to let her die, and that's not an option.
It came down to trach her or lose her, and she fought so hard. Gonna fight with her, so we trached her.
It was a decision that I made because they had actually brought up the trach when he had first been admitted, and this was April of 2011. They did throw it out there that he might have to get a trach because of all the re-intubating, and at that time I was very hesitant about it and I wasn't for it. It just sounded like it was a bit too much for me to handle, for my family to handle, even for him to deal with.
It was quite stressful because, again, he did count on it for every breath, and the emergencies were a little more often at that point.
And it wasn't until it was proven to me that he pretty much couldn't survive without it, that he needed it basically, to give his body a rest and, to let him kind of have a better way of life.
We had to move her from her room. We had to put her in our living room, so that way it would be close to the kitchen, close to the bathroom, because Sophia needs to be watched around the clock 24/7. If we have nurses, the nurses will have also access to the kitchen as well as the bathroom, and Sophia would be there. So
even though you had that great system going on at the hospital and everything was here and this was there and you know where to get it, you would think that, okay, when I get home, I'll have the same system and everything will be okay and it's not going to be that hard. But in reality, when you do get home, it kind of is that hard, and you just have to build your own system and try and work, in your own environment, because at the end of the day, that nurse is not there, or those other nurses, I should say, are not there. It's just you. At the hospital, you have that extra hand, whereas, if I'm doing something at the hospital, there's a nurse right over my shoulder saying, do you need my help? Or can I help you? Or she's there to help you and give you the other hand, or the other two nurses, or whatever the case may be. But at home, it's you in your hands, and whoever your other person is, your partner, your helper,
We had to make sure that we were actually in another house when Aaron came home from hospital. We purchased this house with making his room on the main floor and accessible. So I had to install doors just to have visibility to him from the kitchen and the rest of the main floor. That's really the major modification that we had to do, is just to make sure that we could see him from other areas of the main floor.
We've also, you know, when we decided to purchase this house, one of the things was the air exchange unit on the furnace, just trying to keep the air quality as the best that we could have it for him, just to decrease risk of infection in every way that we could help him.
It's a fresh air unit, so in this house it's essentially a microclimate, and it has a heat exchanger, and it just makes sure that there's enough fresh air in the house.
Accessing supplies again has been a fight, but utilize your social workers, utilize the chest clinic. These people are there to help. They do have phone numbers of families such as ourselves who are more than willing to help anybody in need get what they can and what they deserve, what their child deserves. There's also groups within the community of families that will give supplies away that they either get in abundance or, you know, they have private insurance. It's another thing to take into consideration with supplies. If you have health coverage from wherever you are employed, look into it. You may be entitled to extra things that is not covered by the government. You may be even entitled to extra nursing. Utilize every aspect you can when it comes to supplies, because it can get costly.
Don't be afraid to shop around. Different suppliers have the exact same things with huge differences in price according to how much profit they seem to want to make. So we make do with one major supplier, but we get different things from other suppliers as well, depending on cost. So there's a huge difference in price even on the same things from different suppliers. So shop around, it's worth the time.
And sometimes they don't bring the right amount, and my mom has to reorder it, the supplies, because it's sometimes they bring less or less of the supplies and we need more. So I have to order again.
And the quantity also. In the beginning, the quantity is very big, and we have an apartment, we don't have much space. So we're also suffering from that point of view.
I mean, she had the trach from the beginning, so it didn't worsen her life, but what it could be if she didn't have the trach, you know, if she had a BiPAP, for example, during the day, we don't need the suction machine, right? We might not even need the monitor, I don't know. But I guess with the trach, you have to have the suction. You have to make sure that you're suctioning her, you know, frequently if she needs it, because if you don't, then then there might be a plug, and then you could have a problem. You might have to do an emergent trach change.
The last time it took a team of 15 people to reintubate her, and I was told to make a choice, and they kept her alive with drugs and giving her oxygen and doing everything for her. From that point, it's time to fight for a trach, because it just wasn't worth the risk of losing her just to try not have a trach.
And then in the first time, she had a lot of traction. It's around 1 per second. It's very hard when we need to stay with Valentina. When you have a traction, right away you need to do it again.
It does have a long-term effect that I think, you know, you need to be prepared for it. It's a chronic level of stress that even though you wouldn't change it for the world, it does take its toll on you, and you do the best you can do, and
it does take over your life, but it's also so precious and so worth every moment that I would never take it back. I would do it again.
Sometimes we cannot actually make for the functions because of the way things are working. Like we cannot believing one person. We have to be traveling in a group of 3, and sometimes that's necessary for all of us to be together, and maybe we will have to avoid, like, some of the social events that we before we have to attend to.
Yes, we have traveled with Hiba on vacation, and during the vacation it was really nice, and we have a lot of fun. But the things we have to do is the supplies. We have to deal with the supplies. There are a lot of supplies we have to carry, and also we have to think about extra supplies, not only the main supplies. We have to take extra supplies just in case.
It's like we cannot both have full-time jobs because at this time we cannot place her in the daycare because there's no funding for the nurse to go in the daycare. There's only the 42 hours, and then if we use that for the daycare, then we're not gonna be able to sleep. So it's a vicious circle. I mean, we found that in the daycare, CCAC could only pay for somebody to be with Sophia for $10 an hour. So we would not be really comfortable, because even the nurses that come in at night, sometimes we have to train them and they're not aware of, the trachs and the vents. So somebody who would actually get paid $10 an hour, we don't know what kind of service that would be. And
it was hard for us as a family to spend time together because him being in critical care wasn't, there wasn't a lot of access for all the kids. Only my older 2 children were allowed to come and visit. So one of my biggest things was getting him home. I wanted to make sure he was okay and he was well, but I believed in him, and I wanted him home with his family.
I would say the biggest challenge for me was not having all that attention that I needed when I was little, and it all being transferred to Aaron. So it was all on Aaron.
I have the 4 children, one being a teenager. We always included them in the decisions. They were fully made aware of what was wrong with Haley, what the future looked like, and how as a family we would have to function and come together and really help each other.
Because so much of the attention is focused on your child that's fragile, and it's unfortunate that you aren't able to focus as much attention on your other children as much as you'd like to.
It wasn't easy to balance my time between him and them. They did make it easy for me because they weren't very demanding. They were very understanding of what the situation was, so they made it a little bit easier for me. But yet still, it took a toll on myself, my life, everything, pretty much. Yeah, it was a very hard experience. Very, I don't even know what word to use.
You really got to get your information, stay informed, talk to parents, talk to people that you can really lean on, and weigh what's going to happen if you don't trach, and make sure that your decision is what you can wake up to and look in the mirror every day and be satisfied with.
I was hoping he'd make it to his 2nd birthday, which he didn't, but I was hoping that we could spend Christmas together, which we didn't. But nonetheless, he came home, and I was happy about that. We got to spend that quality time together.
That's being home. It's allowed us to bring her home because she's stable enough to have in the home. And I do remember her being in the hospital, us only being able to visit for a few hours a day because she was far away from where we lived. And at that time, without being trached, she wasn't stable enough to bring home without all the support there. So it's allowed her to be here when I am all the time. So it's allowed us to stay together as a family.
After the surgery initially, I couldn't talk, and it took a week until I was able to talk. But I think that it's really important that before the surgery that you find some way of communicating, whether it's like hand signals or maybe, let's say, stuff on paper, but you need to find some way of communicating because there might be time after the surgery that you might not be able to talk, and it's really important that you're able to communicate with people, and so it's really important just to have some sort of system available.
Well, I couldn't speak for that 1 week. Even though it was a week, it was very hard because that's the one thing that, I communicate with is talking, and if I don't have that, no one really knows what I need. And, even though I tried to get people's attention like my parents knew I can write, but none of the nurses knew, and every time I tried to get their attention, they wouldn't understand, and they wouldn't know that I can talk, I can, write or understand what they're doing.
And not knowing what to do in a situation when it comes in, and seeing your child is suffering and there is something wrong and you're not being able to help them out, that was the toughest part.
The day, I guess it would have been, he came home on the 14th of December, and on the 16th of December, he seemed a bit not like himself. He was really hot. He seemed a little bit on the crankier side as well. He was crying a lot more than he usually did. And he spent pretty much the whole day untying his trach tie. Just the tie that goes around the tubing, just to keep everything together. So I spent that whole day pretty much retying that tie, which was odd, but he's done it before, so I went with the flow. That night he went to bed, I went to bed, and then I woke up to his alarms going off. And by the time I woke up, he had already passed. He wasn't breathing. I tried to do CPR. I tried to give him oxygen. I tried everything. But, nothing worked. So my kids were here. They were sleeping as well. I woke them up, and they came down. They called 911. Ambulance came and everything, the police, and they pretty much took it from there.
I think that if I were to tell the new families who were considering this, I would probably tell them that with me, it helped a lot, but like with the medical side, and I got to enjoy a better quality of life. But then I would also say that every case is different, and like it's better to plan things accordingly, because not every family is the same. But it would be important for them to know that it helped me, and it might help them a lot too.